All right, ready to dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's basically a financial Bible for so many people, and we've got excerpts galore to unpack.
It's definitely one of those books that gets people talking, that's for sure.
No kidding. So, we're going for the gold here, right? Those key ideas that make people rethink how they see money.
Absolutely. What makes Kiyosaki different is he's not just preaching budget and save. He wants to shake up your entire money mindset.
Yeah, I got that vibe right away. He uses his own life as this example, right? His poor dad versus the rich dad.
Exactly. And it's interesting because his poor dad was actually very educated, financially stable.
But still stuck in that traditional way of thinking.
Exactly. Whereas the rich dad, his friend's father, he was all about building a business, creating wealth from the ground up.
Instead of just working for it.
Okay.
Which brings me to that story early on that really grabbed me, the one where Kiyosaki and his friends set up a comic book library.
Ah, yes. That one perfectly illustrates one of his big points. The rich don't just work for money. They find ways to make their money work for them.
Passive income, right. Making it while you sleep, all that.
Exactly. And think about it. These boys weren't exactly rolling in it from their regular jobs, but they found a way to create this income stream that didn't require constant hustle.
And that leads us right into assets versus liabilities, yeah.
Hmm.
Which is where I think Kiyosaki throws down the gauntlet a bit. He says a house, the American dream and all that, not necessarily an asset.
He's not afraid to challenge conventional wisdom, that's for sure. Kiyosaki's argument is, unless your house is generating income, like if you're renting it out, it's actually a liability.
Because you're constantly pouring money into it. Mortgage payments, property taxes, upkeep.
Right, it's money flowing out, not in. He uses that same logic for things like cars, that new car smell. It comes at a cost, literally.
Makes you think twice about that upgrade. So if our beloved homes aren't the key to wealth building, what does Kiyosaki suggest we focus on instead?
It all comes down to building up your asset column. These are things that generate passive income businesses you don't have to micromanage, investments that yield returns, real estate that brings in rental income.
And he's a big fan of diversifying, right? Not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. He learned to spot opportunities that others might overlook, like that story where he buys a house at a foreclosure auction for a steal. His neighbor paid way more for the same type of place.
Now that's savvy shopping, but I can already hear some listeners thinking, okay, but I'm not a real estate tycoon. How does this apply to me?
And that's the beauty of it. Kiyosaki argues that it's not about what you do, it's about how you think about money. It's about financial literacy, no matter your profession.
Okay, I like that. So it's less about needing a fancy finance degree and more about arming yourself with knowledge.
Absolutely. He breaks it down into 4 key areas.
Right.
Accounting, which is understanding the language of money, then investing, understanding markets, and also the law, particularly how it relates to taxes and businesses.
And speaking of taxes, he gets into some pretty eye-opening stuff about how the wealthy use strategies that most people don't even know about. He doesn't hold back.
He learned from the best, right? His rich dad built his wealth through business savvy and smart tax planning. Kiyosaki actually argues that sometimes being overly specialized in a job can make you more financially vulnerable in the long run.
Which is where his idea of minding your own business comes into play, right? And I don't think he just means starting a company.
You got it. It's about building that asset column alongside your job. Always be learning, mastering financial concepts, and not letting fear hold you back.
He even gives you a whole list of action steps at the end. It's like a personal challenge to up your money game.
He doesn't mess around, that's for sure. Like his first one, and I quote, "Stop doing what you're doing."
Talk about a wake-up call. Though, in fairness, he follows that up with, if it's not working.
Right. He's basically saying, take a hard look at your life, your habits, your finances. If they're not getting you where you want to be, something's got to change. And that can be scary. But sometimes a little shakeup is what we need to unlock bigger opportunities.
So true. It's like he's saying, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because on the other side of that discomfort might be some serious financial breakthroughs.
Exactly. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's not just a book about getting rich. It's a book about rethinking your entire relationship with money.
And about having the courage to question everything you thought you knew.
Now you're getting it.
Okay, so we've talked about assets, liabilities, the need for financial literacy. But Kiyosaki introduces another concept that I found super interesting, the cash F-flow quadrant. What's the deal with this quadrant?
It's like a compass, but instead of north, south, east, west, you've got employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor.
Okay, I'm visualizing it.
So Kiyosaki uses these 4 quadrants to show the different ways people make money, how they fit into the larger picture.
So it's not just about how much you earn, but the source of that income, right?
You got it. See, Kiyosaki says the left side of the quadrant, the employee and self-employed, they're often stuck in the time for money trap.
Meaning they're limited by how many hours are in a day.
Exactly. You can only work so many hours. But the right side, the business owner, the investor,
They've figured out a way around that.
they've cracked the code. They use leverage systems that generate income even when they're not physically working.
Okay, so like a business owner has a team, maybe automated processes so things run smoothly even if they're on vacation.
Precisely. And an investor. Their money is out there working 247, generating returns.
It's like that story Kiyosaki tells, the 2 villagers who need to supply water to their people.
Oh, yeah. One guy, he's hauling buckets back and forth, exhausting himself.
Back-breaking work. And the other guy builds a pipeline.
And the water just flows. That's the B&I quadrants in action.
Building a system that works for you, not the other way around. So this is about escaping the rat race, as Kiyosaki calls it, right?
Exactly. That feeling of working hard but never quite getting ahead.
Now, not everyone's meant to be a CEO or Wall Street guru. So how does this apply to, say, the average person with a 9 to 5?
Kiyosaki would argue that anyone can make the shift to the B&I side. It's not about some special talent you're born with.
It's more about a shift in thinking, in how you approach money and opportunity.
Exactly. It's about unlearning some of those old beliefs and habits that might be holding you back. He's critical of traditional education, you know.
In what way?
He says it prepares us to be good employees, maybe even skilled professionals. But it often doesn't teach us how to build wealth, how to think like an entrepreneur or an investor.
It's almost like he's saying, don't just get a good job, design a good life. But shifting quadrants, that can't be easy, right?
It's not just about crunching numbers or reading a few books. Kiyosaki talks about the emotional and spiritual side of wealth building, too.
Like overcoming the fear of failure, for instance.
Exactly. He actually encourages people to get comfortable with failing, even to brag about it a little. Like a Texan, he says.
Okay, now that's a new one. Who brags about losing money?
It's about reframing what failure means. It's not the end of the world. It's a chance to learn, to adjust your course, and come back stronger.
So it's about resilience.
Exactly. Kiyosaki doesn't want you to just dream about a different financial future. Remember those action steps he gives?
Hard to forget, especially that first one. Stop doing what you're doing.
Right, like wake up and smell the coffee. If what you're doing isn't getting you closer to your goals, why keep doing it?
It's a call to action for sure. So being brutally honest with yourself about your habits, your finances, even your beliefs about money.
Exactly. And then being brave enough to actually make some changes.
Right.
He wants you to think, why not me? Why not learn from the people who've already done it?
So find those mentors, whether they're in your life directly or through their books and teachings.
Exactly. Surround yourself with those positive, successful vibes.
And don't forget about that inner critic, right?
Oh, huge one. Kiyosaki says our own minds can be our biggest obstacles. We get trapped by fear, by limiting beliefs.
We tell ourselves we're not smart enough, not experienced enough, not whatever enough.
Exactly. But he wants us to flip the script, to embrace that Texan attitude of, yeah, I might lose big, but I might also win big.
And that even in the losses, there are lessons, there's growth.
100%. It's about reframing failure, seeing it as a stepping stone instead of a roadblock.
So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's more than just a financial how-to, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like a personal development book, disguised as a finance book. It challenges you to transform your relationship with money, to question everything you thought you knew.
And to realize that you have way more control over your financial destiny than you probably realize.
Exactly. Kiyosaki doesn't want you to just understand how money works. He wants you to understand the psychology of wealth.
To develop that rich dad mindset, even if you didn't grow up with it.
Right. And part of that is choosing your heroes wisely, who you let influence your thinking. He talks about people like Warren Buffett, Donald Trump.
And it's not about trying to be them, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing the principles they embody,
Yeah.
the habits they've cultivated, the risks they've taken to achieve that level of success.
And learning from their journey, their wins, and their losses.
Precisely. Kiyosaki even encourages people to read biographies of successful people, to study their strategies, to see how they overcame obstacles.
Because success leaves clues, right?
Exactly. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's so much to learn from those who've already walked the path you want to be on.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what's the one big takeaway you hope sticks with our listener?
For me, it always comes back to that word, mindset. Kiyosaki is adamant that real wealth starts in your head, with your beliefs, your habits, your willingness to challenge the status quo.
It's not enough to just know the right formulas or strategies. You have to believe in your own ability to create wealth, to make smart financial decisions.
Absolutely. And you have to act on those beliefs, to be bold, to take calculated risks, and to never stop learning and growing.
That's what will ultimately set you apart and allow you to create the financial future of your dreams. Well said.
Thanks. It's been fun diving into this one. Always gets you thinking.
Absolutely. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a true classic for a reason. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds open, those goals high, and those financial fires burning bright.